Now, discourse community, that's the first thing that we want to look at. I'm sure you have already read your slides and then you have been able to really get a glimpse of what it means to belong to a discourse community. But in the first place, we want to anchor it, the definition, what is a discourse community? And then after that, we want to look at the 4 distinguishing features of a discourse community, and then what is available for the student or the participant of a discourse community. So what are your roles? What are you expected to do in a given jurisdiction that is called discourse community? So we'll learn all that before we move on to with 2 materials. Okay, right. So a discourse community is a specialized jurisdiction where language use has been prescribed and the members have to conform to such norms that have been prescribed to that particular discourse community. What does that mean? What it means is that in the academic setting, University of Ghana or any other university, you see we have faculties and then we have departments. Faculties are called the microcosm of language acquisition. Macrocosm, it means it's a bigger umbrella. Then the department is the microcosm of language acquisition, or whatever it is that you are pursuing at the university. So we have 2 different jurisdictions, a bigger one and a smaller one. Now, as a student who has just entered the university, you belong to both. You belong to the faculty and you belong to the department. And so if I have not understood your status as a neophyte researcher, please go to your department and find out what things you need to know to be able to conform to the standards of any given discourse community. Okay? All right. So you have all come and you belong to different faculties and departments. But because of the dictates of this course, you all meet, okay, for general courses. Now, when you meet for general courses, it is just for that time. As soon as the course is done, you go back. In fact, we say you revert to the old order. You go back to your discourse community. I hope you understand that. So you must understand that once you have enrolled as a student of any given university or any tertiary setup, you belong to a certain jurisdiction. It is either the faculty, the umbrella body, and then the department. Okay, that is why we have engineering, we have nursing, we have this, we have that, and all that. You belong to one. So that area that you belong to is what is called discourse community, because language use in that jurisdiction is specific and you have to conform. As an engineer, when you write from that angle, from that jurisdiction, from that discourse community, every other person who constitutes your audience should be able to know that this writing is coming from this jurisdiction called engineering setting or political science or whatever. Why? Because of the language use. The language that is used in engineering setting will certainly be different from language that is deployed in political science or music department. I hope you understand that. And so if you want to conform to that jurisdiction, then you must also conform to the standards that are set in that very jurisdiction called discourse community. So that is why economics, in economics department, for instance, you hear people talk about supply, demand, curves, equilibrium, and all that. When you go to engineering, the language will be slightly different. I hope you understand that. There they'll be talking about, maybe bridges, bolts, nuts, and what have you. Have you understood that? And when you come to the liberal arts, then there too we have some divisions. In linguistics, for instance, you hear of allomorph, you hear of syllables, You hear of tone, and so on and so forth. But when you go to music department, for instance, you hear the G clef, the F clef, the stanzas, and all that. Have you seen? Yeah. Now, these language differentials are important for anybody who belongs to any of these jurisdictions. The jurisdiction that you find yourself in constitutes your discourse community. So you must conform to the language that is used in that environment. I hope that point is made. All right. And so once you belong to a discourse community, be ready to conform to the language used. Okay? So that when you write from that jurisdiction, any other person who reads your stuff will know that you are writing from the perspective of an engineer, from the perspective of a political scientist or a social scientist or what have you. I hope the point is made. Right. Now, these discourse communities have 4 distinct features. Every discourse community has 4 distinct features. So any participant, any student who belongs to any of these specific jurisdictions must conform to these 4 distinct features. I hope the point is made. And these 4 points are: 1, mechanisms for intercommunication. When you all belong to the same jurisdiction, your language use, especially when it comes to research, you must choose from the same common grounds. People who read you must know that this other person is from this jurisdiction because of the way he talks, the way he writes, and all that. So there should be mechanisms for intercommunication. As an engineer, when you talk, people should discern that this one is talking from the perspective of an engineer and all that. So that's the first feature of this discourse communities, mechanisms for intercommunication. The second one is that in any discourse community, especially in the university setting, we have mechanisms for assessment. From time to time, we give assessments to see whether students have been able to grasp the concepts that have been taught over time. And so you hear your, what do you call them, your instructors say, in a given day, and they mention the time and then the date and all that, we will come for an IA, we will come for a quiz, we will come for interim assessment, what have you, and so on. And so it has become a feature of every academic discourse community. From time to time, you must know that your teachers, your instructors will come and say, today we are going to give assessment, so get ready. And you cannot say no. When you say no, it means you are digging your own grave. I hope that point is made. So every discourse community has mechanisms for assessment, and that is evaluation. And then they also have times for reviews and so on. Is sometimes they ask you to review a material. It's a feature of every academic discourse community. You review materials and so on. If materials are outdated, then you have to really review them and then make suggestions for their renewal and all that. That's also another strong feature of an academic discourse community. And then there again, it is not like the secondary school or the primary school where you are taught and then it comes to a certain day that you are told that you write a test. Nobody really comes to do tutorials. But in a effective discourse community, you are encouraged to do tutorials. And for tutorials, we have 2, teacher-led tutorials or your mates meeting together to really offer some kind of tutorials. And so all these things happen in the discourse community. I hope that point is also made. All right. And then there's another one, that is the use of participatory mechanisms for providing information and feedback. At this level, when you belong to a discourse community, when assignments are given, you have to follow a certain rigid manner in bringing information to your instructors. Rigid in the sense that you have to quote from renowned writers, from authorities, from prolific writers, from experimented writers, from experienced writers, and all that. It is because at this level you are a neophyte researcher, you are a new researcher. Do you understand that? And so you don't have any philosophies of your own. And so when you belong to a discourse community, when you write, you should be able to discern that you are not writing from your own experience. You are combining the thoughts, ideas, and what have you from prolific writers or those who are known in that field of endeavor. Do you understand that? So we call that one participatory mechanisms for providing info and feedback. And then probably the last one that you have to know is that in any given what do you call that community, discourse community, that's what in a given discourse community, there must be a possession of multiplicity of genres for communication. You don't only write articles for publication, you also do theses, you do dissertations, and then you do presentations and all that. So you see, in a discourse community, you have to engage yourself in providing information, in making discoveries, and creating content for others to use. And then this one comes in the form of report writing, argumentation, articles, journals, dissertations, thesis, project work, and what have you. So you see, and in doing all these, you should conform to the standards that are known in that discourse community. All right, and so you don't write like somebody from a secondary school. You have to conform to the standards and all that. Very, very important. Very, very important. So as you are now, you should know that you belong to a discourse community. And so you have to know how to write, because writing has to be done following laid down procedure. It is not what you brought into the university, but what will be taught. You just conform to that, and then it becomes academic. And so when writing, you must make sure that you conform to whatever is acceptable in that jurisdiction called discourse community. And you have to be ready for feedbacks. When we give you assignment, you have to turn in the assignment at the stipulated time. Assignments come with deadlines, and you must make sure that within the stipulated deadline you submit assignments, otherwise you'll be penalized. You see, all these are rules that pertain to the discourse community. All right, did you get that? Aha. So that is very, very important. Now, apart from knowing what the discourse community is, you should know that once you enroll in a university system, your status has changed. You are now called a neophyte researcher, or a novice researcher, or a tyro researcher, or a debutant researcher, or simply you are a fresh researcher. Now, what runs through all these nomenclatures is that you are now a researcher. Meaning what? That when you are given an assignment at this level, you should not use your own gumption, your own ideas, your own philosophies to do it. You must go and read for more information so that you conform to the standards of the discourse community. Yes, in the discourse community, as one of the features, you have to do assignments and all that. We call them assessment. But you have to be guided by decorum, that you don't just stand up and then use what you know to produce, a paper. You have to go and read for information. And then when you get the information, then you can use such information to do your assignment and all that. Remember that there are deadlines, and must conform to these deadlines and so on. Now, if we talk about the fact that when you are given an assignment at this level, you have to go and read for information, then remember that two things are going to play out prominently. The whole course is about writing, But you cannot be a very good writer when you don't give yourself to avaricious reading. Avaricious reading means reading whatever comes your way. Because everything that has the pride of mention in archives, in books, and what have you, are all important for your instruction. And so read them. Don't say that I'm only reading what pertains to my jurisdiction. No. No. The university is called a citadel of learning, where you learn a whole lot of things that probably do not pertain to only your area called Discourse community, but any other thing, so that if you leave that jurisdiction called Discourse community and then enter into another person's discipline, then you'll be able to argue a bit. But if you conform to only yours and then you go out of it, and then somebody, an academic, an intellectual, brings up something for debate, will you tell the fellow that, no, I don't know this? Then you are half-baked. What did I say? Half-baked. But you should be a full-rounded scholar, a full-rounded student, a full-rounded researcher. And so read whatever comes your way. So if reading comes in like this, then there are two literary processes that you have to engage yourself in. That is reading and writing. Anybody who writes very well is that fellow who has really gone through some kind of rigorous training in reading. Very soon we'll know the types of reading that exist in academia. So reading and writing go hand in gloves. Did you hear the expression? They don't go hand in hand, they go hand in gloves. It means if you want to be a good writer, then you must give yourselves to reading, extensive reading, what I call avaricious reading. Is that okay? Right. And so that is important. So keep it where rain will not touch, where sunshine will not touch, and so on. Let it be evergreen, because it is important to remember that once you enroll for academic writing, then you must combine two literary processes, and the processes are reading and writing. I hope the point is made. That is good. That is good. Now, in every discourse community, you don't only combine. Oh, you can imagine. Somebody is calling. I can't take this. Please forgive me, my students. Your mates, they like calling me and all that. So just forgive me. Let's continue. In any given discourse community, language use is specific. And you can build on this specificity when you read. When you read, then you improve on your lexis. Then you improve on your style. Then you improve on your vocabulary. I hope you understand that. And when you constantly read prolific writers, you learn the way they construct their sentences. And then your own sentence construction becomes very effective. I hope that point is made. And so, if you want to do well, then you must always remember that you combine two skills to be able to do well as a writer. You must have time for reading. Okay? I hope that point is made. So the two literary processes that you have to endear yourselves to are what? Reading and writing. I say they go what? They go hand in gloves. Another expression is they go pari passu. They go pari passu. The next one is that the two literary processes are synchronous. You cannot do one and leave the other. If you want to be a good writer, then you have to read. As you read, naturally, automatically, you become a good writer because you listen to, experts. You read from them, and naturally you imbibe these skills. It's so natural. It's so automatic. Have you seen that? All right. So put that one in your encephalon. Do you know encephalon? Your brains. Your brains. Don't forget the two literary processes. I said they are what? Reading and writing. And they do what? They go hand in gloves. They do what? They go pari passu. They are synchronous. And then finally, we say they are transactional. Transactional means that one depends on the other. All right? Good. That's very important. Very, very important. Have you heard that? All right. So let's leave that one there and then go to reading strategies. reading strategies. You want to be good writers who belong to a discourse community. And so, how do you imbibe all the etiquettes that will help you to be able to write effectively? Okay, there are some pinned down strategies that you can adopt. One is called scanning. When you stumble upon any reading material, depending on the exigency of time and then the urgency, then you can decide to adopt the scanning method or strategy or technique. It is called what? Method, strategy, and technique. The scanning method, the scanning strategy, the scanning technique. Is that right? Another one that is available to you is the skimming strategy, method, or technique. Did you get that? So we have scanning, then we have skimming, then we have close reading. That's the third type that you can engage yourselves in. Close reading, that is when you are looking for minute information. Okay? If you are not too attentive, if you don't really sit down well to interrogate whatever it is that you are investigating, you might not get what you are looking for. So there is a strategy for getting important elements from any reading material, and you can only adopt the close reading method to do that. I hope that point is made. Then we have the last, extensive reading. Extensive reading. Extensive reading is that normally, that was what I explained first. Don't say that because you belong to a certain, discourse community, so you only learn what pertains to that jurisdiction alone. Then you are not a round intellectual. You only have baked. It's only what happens around you that you are interested in. You are not a good researcher. I hope the point is made. So read extensively. When you read one material, be ready to read another, because that is what you will require to be able to do academic writing, because you have to quote copiously. But if it's only one material that you have read, then how do you make any argumentation from there? But when you have made about 2, 3, 4 different readings, then you're able to take from all these, and then you bring out the different styles, and it is called reading extensively. So once it goes beyond 1, 2, and 3, then it is extensive reading. Okay, so we have 4 reading strategies that are available to the neophyte researcher like yourselves. I say your status has changed. Once you set foot on the shores of the university, your status has changed. You are now a research fellow, but you are a beginner, and so we call you the neophyte researcher, the novice researcher, the tyro researcher, the debutant researcher, the fresh researcher. And then you have to go through all these protocols to be able to know what you need to know to be able to stay and conform to the standards of that discourse community. Okay? Right. So let us now see what these reading strategies really mean. We said scanning. We said scanning. Now, scanning is a quick reading method that allows you to locate information that you need. When you are given an assignment and it involves dates or specific names or locations and all that, you understand that? You can just scan by using your eyebrow to go through and then selecting the key elements, the cracks of the reading material. You can adopt the scanning method. When you want to get information quickly, then the best strategy or method or technique that you can deploy is called the scanning method. Is that point made? So simple. So simple. So it's a quick reading method that allows you to locate information that you need. The second one I mentioned, do you remember? I could hear somebody say skimming. You are right about that. Skimming. So you don't only scan, you can also skim information. And what is the thin line that lies between the two strategies? For skimming, it is also a quick reading method. But listen to what follows. for skimming, it's a quick reading method that allows you to make up your mind about a piece of text. It means that one, you are not just locating specific information, but you want to read to see whether you can get some understanding from the text. Because the understanding you get will be able to help you to do your own composition later. And so when you have a support material that you want to read to get information for the writing task, you can go and skim. You are not just locating information, but you are instructing yourself. You want to understand what the author, the original author, has put on the best script or in that book. And so you take your time. Even though it is quick, you take your time. And that one, you can use your fingers. For scanning, I said your eye goes quickly. But for skimming, your finger, you do this, then you use your finger and all that. All right. But that one, after going through the skimming method, you can make up your mind whether that book is worth sourcing or not. Because even though it is quick reading method, you have had time to romance with the content and all that. So with skimming, you have to really make up your mind whether you want to continue with the book or you think the book is not too interesting. It will not help in your research, so you can jettison it. You can discard it. That's the skimming. But for scanning, it is just to locate information, especially dates and specific names and all that. So as for that, you use your eye. Oh, date 1924. Then you write it somewhere. Oh, 16th May. Then you write it somewhere. That is scanning. But for skimming, even if it's 1924, what really happened there? You want to know. You see? So skimming goes a little beyond scanning. How that point is made. All right. Then close reading, because I mentioned 4. Close reading. This is a careful reading that ensures you do not miss any detail in a piece of text. Skimming does that, but for close reading, it means you have time. That one doesn't have anything quick about it. You want to read for understanding. Okay? So you have to be very, very careful, circumspect in gathering the information that is embedded in the stuff. So you take your time and you do close, attentive. In some books, it's called close, attentive reading. Close, attentive reading. I hope that point is made. Yeah, this is a careful reading that ensures you do not miss any details in a piece of text. It is a reading technique most useful to you as an enterprising member of an academic discourse community. And so if you want to get information, take your time, read closely. Don't just scan and skim. Read closely for understanding. And when you do that, you always get the wherewithal to be able to do your own assignment because you have read closely. So that is close reading. And then finally, we have extensive reading. Extensive reading is employed where there's a need to broaden your understanding of the world. So it is not just one book. It is not just what you can get in any given book. So you read the first one, you want to read more. So you want to compare perspectives from different authors, and then you make up your mind. And so when you do the extensive reading where a lot of materials come into play, what you are doing is that you are going to synthesize the various opinions expressed in the various books by the various authors. When you read any 2 or 3 authors, you will see their points of convergence where they agree. You can also see their points of commonality or similarity. All this mean the same thing. Then you can also, when you read extensively, you can have points of divergence where authors differ in their opinions and perspectives. Okay? So if you want to be able to reason in a diverse manner, then ladies and gentlemen, you do extensive reading. Extensive reading. So in extensive reading, you do not limit the material you read to some subjects and courses or programs you are studying. You also learn from other jurisdictions, and that broadens your horizon. I hope you understand that. All right. Then apart from these 4, that are available to you as a research. Yeah. So you can also have other techniques. You can also have other techniques that you can use to be able to do well in your writing assignments. And so one of such reading techniques, apart from the four that we have highlighted, the four that we have gone through, that is scanning, skimming, close reading, and extensive reading. Yeah, to be able to gather enough information for the writing task, there are some techniques that have been tested over time, and so you have to know them. Okay, now when you deploy these techniques, they allow you to be able to get information that you can use later for the writing assignment. So we have gone through the four reading types: scanning, skimming, close reading, excessive reading. But we also have some other reading strategies that you can adopt to be able to do well in a discourse community. The first one that we want to deal with is called the SQ3R. S as in Sam, Q as in Queen, then 3 as in the number 3, then R. So if you break it down, it is SQRRR method. Oh, have you understood that? And so because we don't want to repeat the R's, we have adopted a number. So we are using the combination of what we call alphanumeric symbols. SQ3R. All right. And so let's see what this reading technique really means. An important reading method that you need to master is the SQ3R. The first S is survey. Survey. The second, that's a Q, is question. Hey, question. Don't mind me. My students are just giving me trouble here. So the second Q is question, and then the third will be the first R. 3 R's. The first R is reading. The second one is recite. Okay, did you get that? And then the third is recite. So recall, recite and recall. Now, when you have any comprehension test, and then you want to read to get information for that assignment, if you want to master and then keep enormous amount of repertoire, then what you need to do is turn the whole thing into these aspects that I have made allusion to. Okay, first, survey the whole text. What tell me? Oh, okay, you. All right. My students, sorry, I'm in another place and my students are worrying me, so don't mind me. Okay, but I hope you are getting that. All right. So if you have any reading material that you want to get as much information as possible, then you can adopt the SQ3R, where you subject the reading material to these segments. First, survey the text. Now, survey here means that review the text to have an initial general idea about it. So read it to see whether you can make any sense out of the material. That is called surveying. I hope you understand. So if you think that you have an exam that has maybe comprehension, whatever, that has summary and all that, you need to understand the content very well to be able to do well. And SQ3R comes to help you to gain confidence and to grasp as much information as possible. Now, it says that first read the material integrally. And technically, that thing is called survey the material. Just survey the material. Is that okay? Survey it. Then when you have surveyed, review the text to have an initial general idea about it. That is what it means. You see, normally, before you do any comprehension, the advice is that read the text integrally. Don't try to understand everything the first reading, but you will see that once you do the first reading, something gets imprinted in your mind. You have a general overview of what the whole text is about. When you do that, then you do well in your assignments. especially in exams. Survey the content and then see whether you can form an opinion about the text. That is what SQ3R prescribes. The first S is survey, and it means review the text to have an initial general idea about it. Then, after you have done that, then adopt the second one, that is Q. Adopt it. And what does it mean? Q means questions. And so you yourself ask questions about what you are reading. So what does the first chapter say? So you may have a writing part. So when I read the first chapter, this was what I got. Then you write it somewhere. But you can do that effectively when you turn some of the chapters and subtopics and what have you into questions. So if it's about an adolescent girl, for instance, you can say, what is the name of the girl? And then see whether you can answer it. Do you understand that? Chapter 2 talks about some of the benefits that a girl stands to gain when she becomes a good girl. And so ask yourself, what does a girl or adolescent girl stand to gain when they live well with their parents? So try to see whether you can recall as much as possible. So turn some of the subtopics, the questions, the chapters, and all that into questions. Okay, and then try to see if you can offer answers. Ask questions about what you are reading. That's the key. And in so doing, you can turn headings and subheadings to questions. I've already told you. When you do that, you see that the reading material becomes very, very simple for you. Then the 3 R's, what are they? The first R is reading. When you have gone through the text on your own, we call it survey. When you turn the subheadings and the headings into questions, that is the cue. Now, when you do that, the next step you have to take to be able to get as much information from the text is you have to read. And in this kind of reading, we prefer the close reading, where you pay attention to details and you spend time so that you'll be able to get the full gist of what you are doing. So SQ3R also prescribes that. So the first R is reading. Do you understand that? So in reading, you have to pay attention to every detail, including punctuation, the meaning of words, and so on. Then the other R, because we say 3 R. So the other R is recite. Recite. And so try to see if you can cram, if you can commit some of the content you have read into memory. So maybe you have read the definition, I think you like the definition. Try to see if you can cram it, if you can memorize it. Is that point made? So that is what is called recite. That is recall. And then recite means say it with your mouth. They go hand in gloves, recite and recall. Recall means how much can you remember? How much can you remember? Do you understand that? Then you can recite what you have read and so on. And so when you do this, then you can get as much information. Yeah. So far, what have we been able to do in today's lecture? The lecture has discussed 1, academic discourse and academic writing. We have also highlighted the features. Okay, that one will be done in, well, maybe after this. I will take that one too. The features of academic discourse community. And then we have also discussed the forms that academic writing takes: reports, essays, thesis, dissertation, remember? Articles and all that. Okay. We have also discussed the concept of discourse community. And then we have also highlighted the link between reading and writing. I'm sure we'll be able to do all this, right? So that's important. That is important. But why do we read? Reading is one of the main activities in academic discourse community. You read so that you can understand people's viewpoints, isn't it? Yes. You also read so that you can build a certain repertoire. When you read stuff from people, you're able to know the way they argue, their style of writing. You learn a good academic style of writing. You learn how to construct sentences. you learn how to do a lot of things, because writing thrives on reading. Oh yeah, that's very important. Don't forget that. Generally, one's writing is informed by one's reading. That there's a direct relationship, between reading and writing, as indicated in my earlier submission. All right. Students read to retrieve information for essays, assignments, presentations, seminars, and examinations. If you don't read, you will not do well in academics, in academic writing, in your chosen field of learning and all that. So reading is sine qua non. Sine qua non, SINEQUANON. It means it is essential for every writer. If you don't read, you will not do well. Now, students are normally provided a reading list from their various courses. So you see, you know that the lecturer will teach you once you have come to the university. But when the lecturer comes, he also gives you a list of other materials that you can read. And indeed, he encourages you to go to the library or internet to go and read for some more knowledge and all that. So you see, reading is sine qua non. It's essential. It's indispensable. It's something you cannot do without when you belong to a discourse community, like the university or the faculty, to be precise, or the department. Do you understand that? So reading is very, very important. We say it is sine qua non. So students are therefore required to read on topics in their course areas and so on. If you want to succeed at this level, then you must always remember that you have to read and read well. Anytime you cease to read, then it means you are going to be very dysfunctional. You will not be able to fit into the system very well and all that. Okay? Another student of mine has just entered, one of my favorites. And then, so forgive me if you heard any alien voice there. That's how they are. All right. And so let's continue. I have already discussed with you that reading is for information. When you read avariciously, you build a certain repertoire. And so when the assignment or the writing proper begins, you already know where to get information from, because you have built a certain repertoire. You can fetch from there. Okay. All right. They are disturbing me. All right. Okay, so that is it. Reading is very important. That is what I want you to know. Reading is very important. And then I told you how to read. You remember the scanning, the skimming, the close reading, and the extensive reading. And then one method or strategy that you can adopt is the SQ3R. You remember that? Oh, yeah. Where S means what? Survey. Q means what? Turning headings and all that into questions. And if you're able to find answers, then you are happy. If you're unable to get answers readily, then it means you have not imbibed the whole content. So go and read again. I hope you understand. Please adopt this reading technique. It helps you to get as much information for the writing tasks ahead. Okay? Right. Yeah, I want to add additional stuff here. In reading for information, if you want to adopt the skimming method, then the items to include in skimming could be headings and subheadings. You look at headings and subheadings. You don't want to probably read the whole stuff, so you go to the headings and subheadings. You skim through. I've told you what it means. And then even introductions, you can skim them. Then diagrams, charts, graphs, tables, pictures, they are called illustrations or visuals. So you can also skim them. You can skim topic sentences, conclusions, and all that. Very, very important, because it's a quick reading method to locate specific things and so on. And so even the introduction, you can adopt the skimming method, okay, to do that. Do you understand that? Then even in skimming, it's also recommended that occasionally read a small section that looks important. It may deal with what you really want to know. I told you about dates and specific names, monuments, and so on. Do you understand that? You can skim them. You can skim them. All right. And then for scanning too, let's see what you can scan. We say scanning is a quick method of reading aimed at locating specific information such as definitions, explanation, or date of an event. I think I've shared that with you. Meaning of an expression, a word, spelling of a word. You can just scan. Yeah. Use your eye and then you go through and you locate the information, and that is it. Okay. So looking up the definition or spelling of a word in a dictionary, finding a date on a calendar, finding an address in an address book, finding a phone number in a telephone directory, all could be described as scanning, since the aim is to locate specific information. I hope you have understood that. In textbooks and some other materials, one can use the index pages to facilitate scanning. Okay, when you go to the index page, it tells you where some specific vocabulary or items are embedded in the book, the index page. And then you can easily, and it comes with pages. So when you see that, then you go to the specific page and then you go and scan that information. You understand that? So the index page, you can adopt a scanning method there. Then how about close reading? Close reading is thoughtful, critical analysis of a text that focuses on significant details or patterns in order to develop a deep, precise understanding of the text form, style, and meaning. It means when it comes to close reading, you want to go into details. Scanning does not offer you details. Skimming does not offer you details. But close reading, you take your time to make sure that whatever it is that you are looking for is well seen, and then you read it for you to get its full import and all that. I'm sure we have said it in several ways. I'm only reiterating so that you know that those things are all important for you. Okay. So let's continue. Now, when we say academic writing, all we are saying is that it is a type of writing that is done by scholars for scholars. You know, when I was introducing Discourse community, I told you that language use is specific. You have to conform to how to write, how to speak, how to do assignment, and all that. Do you remember we did something like that? Good. Now, if writing has to be academic, then it has to follow a certain litany of protocols. Academic writing is different from all other forms of writing in the sense that it is writing that gives itself to formality. You have to do a lot of references. I hope you are listening. You don't have to give yourself to contracted forms. Your language should be impeccable. And then you must not be given to only one way of writing, that is doing what we call simple sentences. No, here is a combination of sentence types, and we call that sentence variety. So you'll be taught in this class what other varieties of sentences that you can do to qualify as an academic writer. So you have to have what we call complex sentences, compound sentences, and then simple sentences, as I have already made allusion to. Okay, we'll deal with clauses and all that, so that you know that when it comes to academic writing, it is no child's play. You have to do it well, and then when somebody reads you, they know that it has come from a very good source and all that. So in academic writing, it is a type of writing that is done by scholars for scholars. I told you that if you belong to a discourse community, your writing should conform to the standards, the norms of that discourse community, so that whoever belongs to that discourse community can understand the vocabulary and expressions that you use, because they also belong to that place. If other people don't understand, it is because they belong to another discourse community. Have you seen the argument? And so we say academic writing is writing done by scholars for scholars. And then they include what? I said so. Have you mentioned one? References. Because you are neophyte researchers, all the quotations that you do should be from experimented writers. We call them authorities. And so you read them and then you pull something from them, their opinions, their style, their ideas, and all that into your work. And then when somebody sees that you have done this by pulling and then acknowledging the source, then they say you have done academic writing, because that is what it is. You are not authorities, and so you cannot say I, for instance. So academic writing uses the third person narration. It doesn't use the first. You cannot say I think in academic writing. No. You cannot say we think. No. You use what we call the passive construction, or a language of distanciation. It is known that as it can be observed, it can be argued. Are you getting all that? Hello, so let's continue. Yeah. Now, so we are talking about academic writing itself, and we have established that it is a type of writing that is done by scholars for scholars. Any other writing form will not be academic, but might be another thing. But what we insist on in the tertiary setting is said to be academic because it has some protocols and specific features that you have to conform to. I hope that point is made. And so one is that it must be devoid of contracted forms. If you are given any assignment at this level, you don't have to be informal about it. You don't have to trivialize issues. Whatever you say, you must have a tinge of formality. Your tone must be formal. Don't use short forms and all that. Okay? Yes. Use idioms that are time-tested. There are some idioms that have become trite, T-R-I-T-E, overused. We don't want to hear them in academic writing. And then combine your sentences as I have already indicated. And some bit of simple sentences, some bit of complex sentences, some bits of compound and all that. Okay? Use some clauses and then use some phrases and all that. That is one. Is that understood? In doing academic writing, you have to be very objective. Now, objectivity here means that say what is time-tested, what is right, what is receivable. If you don't say what is right and time-tested, you might be poisoning humanity. Because whatever is said at the level of the tertiary institution is supposed to be shared by a number of audience. You understand that? So if you trivialize issues and you are not too meticulous, then you'll be poisoning humanity. So make sure that you cross-check your facts, and then you can hide behind prolific writers or experts or authorities or experimented writers or experienced writers and all that by quoting from them. Okay? So when you quote from them, you pull their ideas into your work. And that makes your work very authentic, reliable, and credible. So academic writing is not a child's play. And then when we were chronicling what you had to know about the discourse community, we did say that it's a very serious something, so get to conform to the norm that pertains to that jurisdiction. If you are writing from economics background, let us hear some expressions from economics. Okay, talk like an economist. Then it means you are writing like a scholar. And then remember that at the end of the writing task, whatever you've been able to put down is publishable. And when you publish, it means you are sharing with other audiences and all that. So you cannot afford to include trivialities or juvenile expressions. Everything must be well articulated, and you must have a great deal of formality. Does that make sense? Then it means you are objective. When you're objective, it also means that all the statistics that you churn in your write-up, because that is the hallmark of a good academic write-up, you must have statistics, good dates, churn absolute truths and all that. Okay? Don't put dust in the eyes of the audience. Whatever you want to share must be something that is sacrosanct. Sacrosanct means near perfect. Okay? So don't imagine anything and tell humanity. You'll be poisoning them. You must back your work with evidences and support. So give copious examples and illustrations. Make sure that what you have is correct by way of standard, okay, do that, and then you will be said to be doing academic writing. Another thing is that academic writing must have a title, and it must answer a specific question. What that one means is that normally it is the instructor or your lecturer who imposes the thematic or the problematic on you. He will give you a topic to go and research. We have said that at this level you have to research well and then make sure that whatever you are giving is accurate. Do you understand that? Please don't go and imagine anything that suits your imagination alone. No, let it be something that can be cross-checked, something that exists, something that is correct. If you don't do that, then it means you're only putting dust in the eyes of your audience. And at best, we say you are plagiarizing. You don't have to plagiarize. Does that make sense? Right. So whatever you do, then you must remember that, good. One, it is academic writing, and so you have to be what? Authentic about it. Then you use a lot of data. Give us dates. Take from prolific writers or experimented writers or experienced writers or authorities. Take from them, because you yourself, you come nowhere near the decimal point when it comes to research, because you are just a tyro researcher. You are just here's the words I gave you, remember? Neophyte researcher. I could hear somebody say that. And then the next is what? Novice researcher. And so when you use your own gumption, your own understanding, your own imagination, people will not take you seriously. They will think that you are doing child's play, and that doesn't augur well for academic writing. Now, when you read for information and then the writing task begins, if the writing is academic, then remember that, one, your argument must be backed by evidence and support. You must do a lot of references in the work. Quote people so that people will not have to doubt you. Quote people. Do you understand that? Use visuals, diagrams, charts, tables. And when you have done this, you must remember that it is your voice that we want to hear, because you are doing the write-up. So even though we have given you the permissibility to quote from renowned writers, we also expect you to offer symmetry, commentaries, and some annotations in a symmetrical manner, in a very concise manner. Do you understand that? So don't go and hide behind somebody's rendition, and then because it is fine and you want your instructor to know that that fine rendition came from you, then you don't acknowledge the source. Then you have effectively plagiarized. We'll have time to talk about plagiarism, what it is, what it entails, and how to avoid that. It is an academic monster that you have to avoid by all standards. Is that right? Academic writing also avoids emotionalism. Don't be overly emotive. Don't give flimsy excuses in your write-up. Whatever excuse or whatever the semblance of it, you must have evidence. Quote the numbers. Quote from sources and all that, so that we don't see them as mere flimsy excuses. Do you understand that? When you indulge in excuses and all that, why didn't you come for lectures? I lost my mom. Yes, it goes with empathy and sympathy. But the thing is that I also lost my mom some time back. It didn't stop me from doing anything. But if you tell us that you lost your mom, and for that matter, the money that you had to get for your transportation didn't come and all that, then you are offering some kind of explanation. We call it annotation. Okay? But don't simply give flimsy excuses. That doesn't augur well for academic writing. Does that make sense? So don't be overly emotive. Now, academic writing also uses the language of distanciation. I've already explained it somewhere, that it is better for you to adopt a certain stance that makes you a passive thinker and writer. Okay? So don't use a first person narration, for instance. I think that when you combine this, who are you to think for others? Have you understood that? Who are you to think for others? So please do a general statement that is heavily hinged on passivity. So say it is generally believed that girls that stay with their biological mothers become better wives in future. You didn't say that. You have observed that. You said it is generally believed. It's a passive construction, a language of distanciation. And that is what academic writing really selects. I hope that point is made. It is also argued, that is passive. It means you are not the one arguing. It is argued that when you have very many girls at a place, it is likely that gossip will erupt. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But when you say this, somebody will say, what is the evidence? So quote or adopt the language of distanciation and all that. I hope that point is made. So that's another feature. Now, academic writing answers a question. That is why I tell you, and I did say that a couple of minutes ago, that you answer questions imposed by the instructor. But you must always know that whatever academic pursuit or writing that you engage yourselves in, it is to answer a certain question, and that question is called problematic or thematic, which is normally imposed on you by your instructor. Okay, so every academic assignment comes in the form of a question. That's why you ask you to go and investigate something, go and write about this, go and write about that. It's the instructor who gives that. Do you understand? Right. And so every academic enterprise must have a problematic, must have a question, must have a thematic. In answering any academic question, you must be very logical. You must have what is called logicity in your writing. Okay? So you have to go and look for ideas, and you have to really answer or chronicle the ideas in a certain logical manner. In a certain logical manner. If it's not logical, then it doesn't make for good reading. It is not academic. So all ideas in any academic pursuit must be logically expressed. And by logicity, we mean say the strong points first, and if you have rebuttals, offer them, or opposing views, offer them. Make sure that you are very, very vociferous about. Vociferous means that you are saying it with certainty, with some form of authority, that you understand what you are saying. You must be vociferous when you are doing academic writing. Okay? Don't use informality, slangs, cliches, contracted forms in academic writing. Does it make sense? Yeah. So don't say that I can't see what you are doing, for instance. It's not academic. Write it in full. I cannot. Not I can't. I can't is a contracted form of I cannot. They will be here. They'll. They apostrophe LL. That is infantile. That is infantile. It's not academic. Say they will be here. Did you get that? Aha. So all these are ingredients that every academic writer must apply themselves to be able to do a good academic write-up. Otherwise, you only hazard into any writing form that is far from academic, and you must, of necessity, avoid that. I hope that point is made. All right. As I did say, it's important for you to remember that in academic writing, you have to cite other authorities in your work. And when you imbibe other people's opinions into your work, we say you are incorporating their ideas in text. That's a technical word. In text means in the course of writing. Okay? And we have to see that so that we know that the quotations that you offer are not from you ab initio. They are from people who are tested in the field, people who are authorities in the field, and so on. We call them what? Experimented writers, experienced writers, renowned writers. We call them experts, and then we call them prolific writers. Quote them. But mind you, in quoting, you have to be very, very circumspect, because you cannot quote anyhow. You have to follow a certain acceptable way by which you can quote. And so you'll be taught documentation, how to apply the APA documentation format, the MLA documentation format, and so on and so forth. Okay? Yeah. And so that is very important. And so very soon I will teach you how to do the APA documentation format, and then you will get to know how to imbibe people's opinions into your work, scientifically and prescriptively. It is not done haphazardly. It is not done sporadically. It is done the way it should be done. I am sure you have followed all the discussions we have had so far. So academic discourse community, what it is, the features of it, what you are supposed to do as a neophyte researcher. We have done academic writing, its definition, and what it entails and all that. I hope you remember. The features are the ones we are still chronicling. Okay? If it's academic, then it must have all these features. One, it must have a theme, or it must be in a question form, and it should be answered logically. You remember that? Okay? You must be objective and must use language of distanciation or the passive language. You remember? Then we also said you have to be accurate. You have to be accurate. And when we say accurate, it means use numbers that are not larger than life. When you want to report about a survey that you undertook, then we don't want to say that you interviewed 100 girls and they all said that they got pregnant at age 13. Is it possible for you to have a group of students, for them, all of them to converge in a certain answer? All of them, Abba. It sounds larger than life. And so please be mindful of that. It must be very accurate. Don't use absolute terms in your rendition. Don't say all of the girls that were interviewed. All is an absolute term. No, in life, we don't have absolutism. Okay? Give it a window of doubt. So that is why you use percentages. You can say out of 100, 60 of them said this, 20 said this, 17 said this. Then you are very accurate. I hope the point is made, and so on and so forth. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope we have had a nice bite at the cherry. I promise you that next week we will meet face to face, and then we'll see how we'll be able to make amends.